Yo, hello there ladies and gentlemen, how you doing? It's Alexander Hilly123 here and it's time for a new video. It is time for a new lists video today. And back in November 2013 I made a top 5 Grand Theft Auto games video. Well, today I thought I would do it on my favourite gaming series of all time, which is Resident Evil. And I have more list ideas in mind for the channel in the future, but they're only going to be once every so often. At this moment in time, I'm having a little bit of problems technically in regards to recording videos, and I don't know what it is, but basically I've got my first proper playthrough nearly ready to upload on the channel in terms of modern day games. I've completed Sonic, I've completed all Resident Evil before, and a few other games, but I've never done a playthrough of a quite modern game, and I'm nearly done now. I'm gonna start uploading, in a week or two, but the problem is that there is gurgled audio and crackling audio and this kind of whistling sound as well, and I'm not sure what the problem is. I'm thinking it might be something to do with my laptop not being able to handle what I'm trying to do with it, recording games off the Elgato while that software working, or is it something to do with my microphone? My Samsung Meteor mic is having a bit of a problem at the moment, and I'm getting the Elgato software to automatically reduce the game audio when I speak. Basically, I'm going to be getting a headset very soon, a Turtle Beach one. It's about 35 quid. It's the best seller. It's purely for the Xbox 360, I think, and I'm not going to be getting an Xbox One or PS4 for at least the next 2 or 3 years, so I'm fine with that. But I'm just not sure what the problem is. If it's the capabilities of the laptop, there's nothing I can do. And I really do want to join the master race. Sorry to sound like Adolf Hitler, but yeah, I really do want a desktop computer, because obviously they're more future-proof than laptops. And with the popularity of Twitch TV, which is something that I want to continue doing, and I want to continue recording in any manner that I can do it. I want a desktop computer. So this problem isn't going to be here forever. I'm going to get to the bottom of it, but if it isn't capability of the laptop, I'll solve it. But if it is, for this moment in time, I don't think there's anything I can do but just get through it. Basically, with every 20 minutes of footage, there's like 2 minutes of gurgled audio. So if you watch my State of Decay video, you'll know what I'm talking about. If anyone has any suggestions, please pardon me, tell me, have you got any ideas at least, because I'm stumped at the moment, really. It's pissing me off. But anyway, Resident Evil, my top 5 Resident Evil games. Let's get straight to it. And at number 5, funnily enough, it is number 5. And of course, this game, released in 2009, polarised opinion. There were people who loved the aspect of the co-op and working together. Both Chris and Sheva there on the back only have 9 inventory spaces each. So really, you've never got many health items, and you can't store that much ammo when all is said and done. But obviously, it is a world away from the old Resident Evil games. This was the first, for me, proper action-orientated Resident Evil. People talk about Resident Evil 4, but the thing is, with the 4th game, that it still feels creepy, it's still gothic, it's still got a cold feeling, I'd say. And obviously, needless to say, this is set in Africa. You've got ridiculously huge bosses and enemies, and there's action, there's quick time events all over the place, much more than there is on Resident Evil 4. But when all is said and done, for what it is, Resident Evil 5 is still a solid game. You see, Resident Evil 6 is an aberration and a disgrace to mankind, like I always say. But Resident Evil 5 is a good game. It's just not like the old games, and people do have a problem with that, and I understand where they're coming from. But I still stick up for Resident Evil 5 and say it's a pretty damn good game. I've got my problems with it. I think the bosses are bloody stupid. The inventory kind of annoys me at times, and the AI of Sheva can obviously sometimes be a little bit ridiculous. But overall, it's a solid action third-person shooter, and it's not classic Resident Evil, but it's a really fun, pretty long game that looks varied when you go through it all. I didn't notice there's 2 little guys there. I've never noticed them before. I won't be able to see that, but yeah. I think my mum's running the water. She always manages to bloody get in on my videos. But anyway, the 4th video on my list, ladies and gentlemen, I cannot actually show you physically, but it is Resident Evil Remake. Remaster? We'll just call it Remake. The GameCube edition, 2002, whatever. Basically, I had the GameCube version back in 2002, but I never completed it. Basically because I wasn't gaming at that time. You know, I played Resident Evil 2 when I was 8 years of age, Resident Evil 3 when I was 9, completed Code Veronica with my brother. It took us bloody ages when I was like 11 or 12. But it was just a moment in my life for about 2 or 3 years I wasn't gaming. Basically because I was going through high school and I had other things on my mind, you know, homework and the ladies, you know what I'm talking about, ladies and gentlemen. And, you know, gaming was on the back burner. So I never got to complete Remake. So when I heard of the fact that it was being released on the 360, the Xbox One, PS3, PS4, PC, blah, 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 I was really excited. Now, I'd seen footage of it down the years, obviously, people playing it on Twitch. But really, if you see an hour of footage of a game, and then a week later you try and play it yourself, you won't remember a jot of it. When you've experienced it yourself, only then do you start to know where you've got to go. If you watch someone else play it, it isn't like that. You might know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I mean, Resident Evil Remake, Remaster, any version of the game, but especially the new HD version, it looks incredible considering it's 13 years of age. The gameplay is absolutely fantastically. The defensive items are really good. You've got the invisible enemy mode. You've got real survival, where all the boxes are genuinely separated. So if you're at the right side of the mansion on the second floor, you put something in the box, it won't be in any other box in the game, just that one. I've still not done real survival. I need to get down to it, but I'm really busy at this moment in time. I can't, but I will find time for it sometime in the future. But you know, everyone knows the first Resident Evil, and I think when I played Remake Remaster, I was like, I have a feeling I'm barely ever going to play on the first game ever again. It's a fantastic remake, you know. It stays true to the original. A lot of the rooms are similar. The enemies, the same music done again for the modern age, or for 2002 when it was, and they've also added new rooms, a few new enemies, the aspect of Lisa Trevor, the story is more intriguing, the voice acting isn't that bad to be fair, it's pretty decent, and of course those motherfucking Crimson Heads, ladies and gentlemen. You've got to love the aspect of the Crimson Heads. The only thing that's annoying is the fact that burning the bodies is quite difficult, but the zombies are actually easier to dodge on Remake Remaster than they are on the other Resident Evil games. If you just go towards a zombie, there's certain zombies that lunge towards you, and there's certain ones that don't. And the ones that don't are a pain in the ass, but the ones that lunge towards you, they're not that hard to avoid, to be honest with you. And on hard mode, you've got to dodge them, really. Or at least shoot half of them, dodge the other half of them. You should be able to get away with that, but just make sure you don't spunk your ammo. But graphics, gameplay, tank controls, the bosses, everything about Remake Remaster is amazing. And you know, before I played it, I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna agree with all the hype about this game, but yeah, if you're wondering and you've not got it yet, Remake Remaster is just an absolutely fantastic game in all aspects, as is the next game in the list, ladies and gentlemen. My third favourite Resident Evil game of all time. It's a contentious one. It was always a contentious one, but I'm going to stick up for it because it's one of the best games ever made, and it is Resident Evil 4. Ladies and gentlemen, what can you say about this? It has inspired in the last, 12 years or so, a hell of a lot of other similar games in this vein, but this is still absolutely fantastic. Obviously, when this was released, there was a big, this game got amazing reviews all over the board, and it still is regarded as a fantastic, legendary game by now. But obviously, a lot of the old school Resident Evil fans were not happy because gone are the pre-rendered graphics and gone are the tank controls, and the camera angle is over the shoulder third-person shooter. This man knows a little bit about that. And for me, I played this in late 2005, and I would have been 16 at the time. I actually got it for Christmas 2005, going into 2016. So yeah, I would have just turned 16, and I absolutely loved this, my first playthrough. It was my brother that forced me to buy this because he played it at a mate's house, and he said, we need to play this, it's totally different to the old REs, and I was very sceptical, but because I'd lost faith by then, because already Resident Evil was, for a short time, Nintendo only, and that never worked. It was always utterly bizarre for me. Nintendo were fantastic at what they do, but Resident Evil never belonged on Nintendo. So I was delighted that Sony managed to wrestle back the rights to get this, at least, not Remake and Zero, but yeah, they got this. And the gunplay, like I said, it's got a cold atmosphere and this isolated, desolate woods in Spain where it's set in the middle of nowhere. The Ganados are good enemies. Obviously, you know, they've got axes, they've got different weapons they can throw at you. They're not zombies. If you totally forget about the old Resident Evil games, and there's some Resident Evil fans that can't do this, and you just take this game for what it is, it's one of the best games ever. You've got Mr. Chainsaw Guy, you've got Salazar, you've got those wobblehead things. Oh my fucking god, I hate those things. You've got Verdugo. It's a really long game, you know, as well. A really long game. It never gets old. The weapons are fantastic. And it's just ultra violent and such good fun to play. Leveling your weapons up. A lot of different guns as well to use. The inventory screen is pretty interesting because obviously you just pause your inventory and Leon's there with his gun ready. And a lot of things were made about that. I kind of like the way it's done on The Evil Within. Do you have it in real time like Dead Space with a horror game? It's an interesting one, but I personally like time slowed down when you're in the inventory screen. That's what happens on The Evil Within. Resident Evil 4, time is paused, so the aspect of that element of fear when you're changing your weapon isn't there. But on Dead Space, it's live, and that's another reason why I love Dead Space. But yeah, the inventory screen was interesting, but overall, Resident Evil 4, guys, it's an absolutely fantastic game. But there are some people who hate this game because what it did to the series. But let me just say right here, right now, that if Shinji Mikami would have stayed with Capcom, Resident Evil 5 wouldn't have been the way it was exactly. But he knew what was going on. He's a very clever man. He knew what was going on. This game's all about co-op, and I saw an interview with him a few days ago, actually, when The Evil Within came out. And it was a interview with him saying that, like I said, a lot of things, but one of the things he said is that he feels that horror is a single player experience, and I totally agree with him. And this is all about co-op, released in 2009. You've got to cater to the audience, and I think Mikami knew that. But even still, had he still stayed at Capcom for the release of this, it would have been different, and it would have been a little bit more like Resident Evil 4, whereas this had a polar shift towards full-on action. But there we go. Resident Evil 4, though, guys, it's an absolutely fantastic game that will never age. And if I do get a desktop computer in the future, I've got Resident Evil 4 on the PS2 there, but also the 360, the digital version, which is absolutely gorgeous to look at. I will get it on the desktop computer as well in the future. So many versions of that game, and the consumers get fleeced, which annoys me, but whatever. For a legendary game like that, I'm willing to let that be the case. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, in at number 2, well, let me just say this. If I took a poll of 1,000 hardcore Resident Evil fans, I'd expect this game to be at number 1 for the best, the favourite, the most legendary, probably. But it's only at my number 2, and it is indeed number 2, Resident Evil 2. And as you can see, obviously this is the PAL edition. If you guys want to see the North American box art, it isn't as good as the European box art, in my opinion. I've always loved that cover. It's just absolutely fantastic. Absolutely awesome, man. And I played this game April, May 1998. I actually got the official PlayStation Magazine demo when I was just 8 years of age. And for me, I don't think there'll ever be a gaming experience like it for me ever again. In this rundown post-apocalyptic city, zombies everywhere, everything on fire, and you've just got Leon running through the city. The demo lasted, I think, about 10 minutes into the police station, and then it finished. But I got the game weeks after it came out, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, we can all talk about, well, you shouldn't have been allowed to play that, but, you know, graphics these days are so lifelike and so much different to what they were back then. But it was still pretty intense, pretty damn scary as an 8-year-old, but I was all over it, and I absolutely loved it. And, you know, it's pretty small game, pretty short game, I should say, but you've got the aspect of Leon A, Leon B, Claire A, Claire B, sort of 4 different ways to complete it. If you get the DualShock version as well, you get the Extreme Battle Mode, which is like Mercenaries, only better. You've got to disarm these bombs. Not a lot of people know about Extreme Battle, but it's really, really good fun. But the game looks good. You've got the pre-rendered graphics. The graphics still look great. The zombies on this game are absolutely fantastic. They're the best in the series, in my opinion. The noises they make in this game are just so eerie. And the story with William Birkin, Annette Birkin, Sherry, the G virus, a new super powered version of the T virus, and all that shit through the streets of Raccoon City, and then into the sewers, and then the lab. And obviously, after Resident Evil 2, all the Resident Evil games had that same, layout, which is kind of stupid in a way, through the urban city, into the sewers, into the lab. But overall, it's an absolute classic, as we all know. But it isn't my favourite in the series. But I still absolutely love it, and it'll never get old. Never get old. Not much more to say about it, really. But my favourite Resident Evil game, why have I put this as my favourite? And it's a really hard one, because Resident Evil 2 and 4, when I was thinking of the list and the order, there was a time when Resident Evil 4 was the top one. There was a time, obviously, when I picked Resident Evil 2. But I decided this game should be my favourite Resident Evil game, because I think it's got the right amount of action, and the old school pre-render graphics are there, and the tank controls. But there's something a little bit extra, and that is that the main game is the enemy. It's the main man, ladies and gentlemen. Look at the state of this. 3 for 22 quid. I got this from Amazon about 2 years ago, and the original sticker's been left on. Pretty crazy. It's beaten up and battered, but here it is, and it's kind of ironic, really, because that is what Nemesis is all about. He just keeps coming back. And I remember playing this game for the first time, and with a lot of my favourite games, with the old Metal Gear Solid games, with these, with old football games that I loved down the years, Final Fantasy VII I remember playing for the first time. I remember playing a little bit of Legend of Zelda, these classic games. I remember where I was and what was happening in my life at that time. And I think this was released in late 1999. And I remember I had a mate over for tea. He stayed at my house for a few hours, and my mum just got this for me. And I would have just about turned 10 years of age, I think. And I just wanted to kick that motherfucker out of my house. Get out of my house so I can play this. And it was just like Resident Evil 2, only much better. It looks better than Resident Evil 2, this game. I prefer this game to 2, right? Because you spend more time in that outdoor city environment in Raccoon City than you do on the second game. I feel like, even though this is an unbelievable game, and you're not going to hear any criticism from me about it, I just wish there were more outdoor sections in this game. Whereas in this, you can hear zombies moaning in the background as you go through the city. The puzzles are good and not too stressful and annoying. The zombies are a little bit bland overall compared to the second game. But of course, you've got the main man. You've got Nemesis after you. Of course, in the second game, you've got Mr. X, and I don't have to explain who Mr. X is to all the Resident Evil fans. And he's cool, and he's daunting, he's scary, he walks towards you very slowly, and fucking smashes you when he gets you. But Nemesis, I mean, what can you say? These days in gaming, especially with the younger generation, they're like, where are the jump scares? Where are the constant jump scares? Horror is all about pacing, in my opinion. There's no point in having a game that's constantly like Outlast with the jump scares. I think Outlast is a really good game for what it is. I'm not a big fan of first-person horror games where you don't have any weapons to defend yourself. But games like Alien Isolation and Outlast are really, really damn good. I've not played them, but I've watched a lot of people play them, and I thought very, very good, and good for the horror genre in general. But this game, the pacing is so good, because the first time you play the game, you don't know where Nemesis is, you don't know if he's going to come out of a door, he can chase you through rooms, and the first time, there's a lot of people these days, the games are scary games. This guy, Nemesis, has you on edge all the time, the first time you play the game. Obviously, on prior playthroughs, you know what's going to happen, but there's still a random element to this game, because herbs, there's only about 5 or 6 times it happens, but huge fans of Resident Evil know what I'm talking here. The gunpowder and the herbs, and sometimes the decisions you make with Nemesis, because you have split decisions that you can make. You can either knock him off a bridge or jump off the bridge. You can hide from him or try and hit him with a one-off like power cord that blinds him, or I think in the restaurant you can hit him with a lantern and there's gas that blows up. And your actions have consequences, so every time you play this game it can be a little bit different. You can do handgun and knife only runs for the people who are very good at it, or you can do all Nemesis kills runs as well, which are absolutely fantastic fun. And once you get past Raccoon City, you get into the sewer area, you've got the park area, you've got a giant worm, you've got Carlos, who's a really interesting character. I always like Carlos. You've got Nikolai as the bad guy. And, you know, just the way that Nemesis changes, and he, you know, changes his form as you go through the game, and he has that poison effect, and then you control Carlos. It's just absolutely fantastic. In terms of the graphics, the audio, the gameplay, the setting, Nemesis himself, you've got hunters there, you've got the brain suckers as they're called, the dogs. For me, Resident Evil 3 is just about my favourite Resident Evil game, but I'm justifying it with all the fantastic things about it though. But let's admit it, a lot of people are going to prefer Resident Evil 2, a lot of people are going to say remake, remaster, a lot of people are going to say Resident Evil 4. And you know, there is a niche audience that think Resident Evil 0 is an amazing game. I never completed 0. It's supposedly very difficult. But yeah, Code Veronica, not my favourite Resident Evil game at all. I like it, it's still classic RE, but it's not on the same level as all games that I've just shown, in my personal opinion. But what a great game series. It's such a shame what's happened to it today. But I felt like I wanted to make this video mainly because of the release of Resident Evil Revelations 2, which overall has seemingly been received quite well. It's more old school, they're saying, much slower paced. It looks a lot more, I always say gothic, but what the hell does that mean? Resident Evil 4 is genuinely gothic, you cannot deny that. But it's grimy, it's dirty, it's dark, it's got this kind of horror movie feel, you know, like the first couple of Saw movies, something like that, you know. That's what Resident Evil Revelations 2 looks like to me, whereas Revelations 1 wasn't like that. And I liked Revelations, but I didn't love it. And I still don't think I love Revelations 2, to be honest with you. But there we go, that's what, you know, made me decide to make this video. But still, even though it's shit today, which I think it is, the Resident Evil series is still absolutely legendary and one of my favourite gaming series of all time. So there we have it, Resident Evil 3. What a game. But, ladies and gentlemen, I will be doing other lists in the future on the channel. But yes, I have gameplay videos to upload in the coming weeks. I want to get this gurgled audio problem sorted out. And I've got to decide whether it's worth it, because, like I said, if you watch 20 minutes of footage from me on these videos that I'm uploading at the moment, there's 2 minutes out of 20 minutes where you can't really hear me or understand me. You can still see the game, it's running properly. It's just that my it's like that, and I'm like, why is this happening? Fucking hell, man! All I want to do is upload videos, and I still quite can't. But anyway, I hope I get that problem sorted out soon, guys. But anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.